So basically, when you go for AWS certifications, most people are confused, okay, which certification we have to choose. Like for example, let's say we have a lot of cloud providers, like let's say AWS is there, Azure is there, Google is there, Alibaba is there, Oracle is there, and almost all the cloud providers have a lot of certifications. You can see that, okay, for example, let's say AWS, they're providing these certifications. Azure also is having some same level certifications. Google also is having, Alibaba is having, Oracle is having. So which certification to choose and how to build a career in cloud or cloud security? And that is the most important concerns most people have. Okay. So to address those concerns, first of all, I will tell you the importance of cloud. Why this cloud is so important, I'll tell you. Okay. So you know what is cloud now? And this is not a webinar for the very fundamentals, but still I'll just tell you. When we say the word cloud, understand that, okay, it is not about going for Azure or AWS. It's something which is we do for our business. You know that, right? It is something which we do for our business. That means that, let's say, for example, we are building our own data center. Let's say we are deploying all the resources and everything on our data centers. Okay. But that was okay if you are doing it some years back. But now what happens is when you are going for any kind of or any kind of deployments, if you do it on premises, let's say if you are building everything on premises, definitely nowadays what happens is it can never meet your requirements actually. Why? I'll tell you why. Let's say for example, some years back, if you see the companies when they go for some design of the infrastructure, they don't have a continuously changing requirements. The requirements are always almost stable. But now what happens is the requirements are ever changing. Like every day the requirements is continuously changing. So what happens is the data center and the whole infrastructure must be able to support this continuous agility. So that is where the role of cloud is coming into picture. And also one more thing is there, when we move for cloud, we have a lot more advantages. Like for example, as I told you, the flexibility of the level of services and the flexibility of the features. And of course, you can see that, let's say we can start or we can stop whenever we want to use it. Or the most important advantage we can say is the cost. Like, so for all of these requirements, that is why people are moving to cloud. And as you can see now, the market value says almost some 80% of companies are nowadays moving to cloud. Almost some 83% above of companies want to move to cloud just because of the features they are providing. Okay. So because of all this, this cloud becomes a very, very important thing. Okay. Because of all this, we have a lot of cloud services, or we have a lot of cloud providers coming up, and there is a tight competition also in between these cloud providers to provide the services. Okay, that's it. So in the cloud, as you know that, we have basically 3 service models. So whenever we choose any kind of cloud platform, let's say when we choose a service called as infrastructure as service or platform as service or software as service, whenever we go for any kind of cloud platforms, okay, it is having some, like for example, let's say I am going for IaaS. If I am going for IaaS, infrastructure as service, the advantage is the cloud provider is providing you the infrastructure. But when you go for the PaaS, as the name says, it provides you a platform. For example, if I say I'm a developer, I want to deploy an application. So in my perspective, I want to have a predefined or pre-created environment without the hassle of maintaining it. So I can go for PaaS. Or if I want to use an application which is pre-configured, pre-managed, and completely A-to-user things done by the cloud provider, I can go for SaaS. Likewise, we have a lot of service models and we have a lot of deployment models in the cloud where it comes to different requirements. Okay, that's it. And team, one more thing is there. Whenever you have some doubts, please unmute and ask, or you can put it in the chat box. That's it. So in the cloud, okay, when I move to cloud, I'll tell you something. When I move to cloud, I have seen that, okay, we have a lot of demands coming up in the cloud, and I have seen a lot of job roles. Like for example, like cloud architect, cloud support specialist. Likewise, we have a lot of job roles. But as now almost all the companies are moving to cloud, but now a lot of companies are moving to cloud, what happened was, for every company, the job role is again splitting up. Like for example, they need people for development on cloud. They need people for operations on cloud, they need people for designing the cloud solutions, they need people for security in the cloud. Likewise, the requirement is always increasing. That is where these certifications and these skill sets will come into picture. Okay. So I'll just tell you something. Like for example, I told you in the cloud we have a lot of advantages. Like for example, if I say when we move to cloud, the primary advantage we can feel is scalability. Like for example, what do you mean by scalability, team? When I say scalability, what happens is the ability of the servers or ability of the whole infrastructure to increase or decrease as per the changing demands. That's what we call as scalability. And definitely the next one, which is very important, pay as you go. That means you don't have any kind of capital expense. Like for example, you don't have to spend any money for like initially you don't have to spend any money. The only thing is you use some services, you pay for it, and there is no commitment. Likewise, we have a lot of advantages. The agility, the way you can work, we can have a lot of advantages. And definitely, it is not meaning that you have to stuck with one cloud provider. Definitely, you can move to any other cloud providers also. It provides portability also, right? So, as the cloud is giving you hundreds of advantages, the same way it is having some drawbacks as well. See, anyway, you are moving everything to a cloud provider. Let's say, for example, you are moving everything to Amazon or Azure or Google or Oracle or any cloud provider. Let's say any cloud provider. So you are moving your data to a third party. That is the primary thing. You are moving your data to a third party. So moving your data to a third party means that you are in risk, right? Let's say, for example, I am keeping all my data with somebody else, and I trust that person, and that trust can only be having up to an extent. Why? Because there is no word called as trust when it comes to security. So we have a lot of issues, like for example, there's legal and compliance issues, reliability and performance issues, security issues, lack of standards compatible. I'll give an example. Let's say, for example, I am just handling the data of some customers in Europe. I'm handling some data of customers in US. I'm handling some data of some customers in India. So for every country, there is a lot of legal constraints. Like for example, in Europe, you have something called as GDPR. In US, you have something called as HIPAA, PCI-DSS, HIPAA, FISMA, a lot of things like that. So what happens is, in all these kind of things, they want their data to be strictly inside their country. They don't want to take their customers' data outside the country. So you're moving to cloud. That means that you are taking your data or you're giving your data to store to a cloud provider. And even if the cloud provider do something wrong, who is affected? You are affected, right? That is why this legal and compliance is a very important thing. I'll give an example. I'll give a very simple example. Let's say I just show you, just draw it. Yeah. So let's say we have a bank here. Okay, we have a bank. So what happens is all the customers are putting their money and everything on the bank. So all the customers now are putting their money on the bank. So what happens is this particular bank is actually copying or is actually storing all the customers' data in some cloud provider. You can say CSP, cloud service provider. Let's say, for example, Amazon or Azure or Google or Oracle or any cloud provider. Let's say the bank is putting all the data and everything about the customers on the cloud, any cloud platform. So let's say due to some reason, if the cloud provider loses the data, okay, let's say due to some reason if the cloud provider loses the data, or let's say if some reason the cloud provider is not able to provide security to the data. Let's say if some reason the cloud provider messes up with the data or damages the data. Let's say the cloud provider accidentally copied the data to some other country or some other location, which is not supposed to do. Who is answerable to the customers? The bank or the CSP? Who is answerable to the customers? The bank or the CSP?
Bank.
Of course, yes, right? Yeah, of course. The bank is responsible to, talk to the customers, and bank is having the legal issues. Bank is answerable to the RBI if it is from India. Likewise, so they definitely the company who is hosting the data to the cloud. Let's say, for example, bank or anybody, any enterprise, I am copying my data to a CSP. So I am responsible, which is called as this bank is also, this particular organization is called as the data owner, and this cloud provider is called as a data custodian. So what happens is the data owner is always responsible for handling or the compliance and regulations and legal factors when concerning to the data. Okay, the same way we have a lot of reliability factors as well. Okay, for example, when we move to the cloud, one of the most important concerns which we have is availability. Because we are moving to cloud, that means that we are taking all the data to a remote data center, which is handled by the cloud provider. So what happens is, in that case, definitely I must make sure my data is not copied to anybody else, and my data is available for me whenever I need it. Let's say, for example, okay, I am storing all my healthcare data, my medical data, my company other data. So everything is on cloud provider. I have to verify if the data is actually easily accessible. I must make sure that the data is available. And also definitely, for example, maybe I have a lot, thousands of customers accessing the same data. I can have thousands of customers accessing the same data. In that case, I must make sure there is no bottleneck. I must make sure the performance is perfect so that the customers will be able to access it. And definitely the next factor, okay, there is a lot of standardization factors also. I told you, right? For example, we are moving to cloud. We must make sure my data is stored in such a way that it is meeting the compliance requirements. It is in accordance with the proper standards and regulations. And finally, we have an issue called as security. So security is a very important concern when we move to cloud. Because as I told you in the first time, when we move to cloud, the primary concern which we have is security. Why? Because you are taking the data to somebody else. You are taking the data to a cloud provider. So there is no word called as trust, I told you. The only thing you can make sure is to audit the cloud provider. So that is why when we move to a cloud, okay, nowadays all the organizations are preferring people who is aware of the cloud. There is a word called as cloud awareness. So you must be aware of how the particular cloud provider is working. You must be aware of the responsibilities of the cloud provider. You must be aware of the responsibilities of the consumer. So for all these factors, when considering all these factors, companies nowadays need a lot of people who is actually having very much knowledge on security. Okay, so that is why AWS, Azure, and Google, all these providers are continuously striving to give a lot of services to meet the security standards. So when we're talking about security, in the cloud or in the on-premises, these three factors are very important. The CIA, which stands for confidentiality, availability, integrity, and the AAA, which is called as authentication, authorization, accountability, and something called as non-repudiation. So let's say in the cloud or in the on-premises, you must keep all these things. Okay. So the first and the primary important thing which we have to consider is actually about the confidentiality. Team, can you tell me what is a confidentiality factor? What do you mean by confidentiality? Anyone? Can you tell me what is confidentiality?
Message sent over the encrypted channel.
Okay.
It is a data which is known to only a certain set of people, authorized people.
Okay. Others?
Data is available for the person who is accessible, who is have authority to view that data. So unauthorized person should not view that data.
Okay, perfect. So I have to make sure the data I am processing, the data I am storing, or the everything must be accessible to people who is only authorized. I must make sure the data is not accessed or seen or anything by anybody who is unauthorized. The data must be stored and processed only by the people who is authorized. And the next factor is availability. So when I talk about availability, it is not about getting the data. So making sure the data is available at the right time, that's a primary thing. Making sure the data is available at the right time to the right customers. That's what we call as availability. Yeah, it's about, yes, people, it's about data accessibility, but still it's for the authorized people only. That's a primary thing. Let's say, for example, I make sure the data is available for those people who is authorized whenever they want the data. And finally, which is called as integrity. So integrity is one of the very important concern. Let's say, for example, I am sending a mail to one person. Okay, let's say, for example, we have a person A here. I am sending a mail to person B. So in between, if an attacker sniffs the traffic and if he is modifying the message, what happens is A is sending a particular message to a person. Okay, A is sending a particular message to a person, and this particular attacker here is modifying the message and he is forwarding the message to B. So it is not having integrity. So that means we have to make sure there must not be any kind of alteration to the data. The data must be having the proper integrity solution. Like the same way, so for ensuring the CIA, we must have something called as authentication, authorization, accountability. So CIA can be enforced with a lot of factors, including this AAA, authentication, authorization, accountability. I'll just give an example for that. Let's say, for example, you are going to a website, or you are going to a web application, or you are going to a server, or you're going to a cloud, wherever it is. So first of all, what you do is, okay, you will enter the username. Okay, you enter the username. So when I enter the username, I claim that I am this particular person. I say that, okay, I'm Krish. So the next thing they will demand is enter the password. So when you enter the password, the problem is username is fine, password is okay. When you enter the password, they will verify the password and see if the password is matching with the username, and they see the password is correct. So you are verifying your claim that you are this person, right? When you enter the password, you are verifying your claim that you are this particular person, right? So that is what you call as authentication. Verifying your identity is what you call as authentication. Let's say, okay, you're authenticated. And once you're authenticated, you're logged in. The next thing is, according to your role, according to your job role, according to your requirement, what level of access, what level of permission you can have. Let's say, do you have permission to modify something or just see something? So based on the job role, you, or based on a lot of factors, you have a list of things you can do and list of things you cannot do. That is what you call as authorization. What all things you are allowed to do or not. And finally, one of the most important things which is called as accountability. When I say accountability, the word is very simple. Accountability means whatever you are doing. Let's say, for example, I log in by 3 p.m. Okay, I just clicked on this. I opened this file. I made some changes. So likewise, all the things we are doing here, all the things which we are doing here must have a record, must have a proof to make sure I have done that. So accountability is all about having the record of what you're doing. Let's say, for example, what happens if you don't have accountability? Okay. What happens if you don't have accountability? I can deny I didn't do anything. There is no record for doing something. Let's say, for example, I log into a cloud service, I modified something. I log into a server, I done something wrong. But if there is no record of these kind of factors, then how can we make sure, or how can we see who done what? So that is why accountability is one of the most important concern. And if you don't have accountability, you can have an issue called as repudiation. That's why you must make sure you have non-repudiation. What is non-repudiation? What is non-repudiation, team? Anyone? What is non-repudiation? Taking ownership then. So I'll give an example. Let's say, for example, I am logging on to any of the, for example, I am logging on to a cloud, let's say for a cloud provider. I done something wrong. Okay. Next time my manager is asking me, have you done that? Okay. So I say that I didn't do that something wrong. I say that I didn't do anything wrong. For example, there is no record that I have done of something I have done. I can deny I didn't do that. Is it clear? I can deny that I didn't do that. That is what you call as repudiation. To avoid repudiation, you must have accountability, which is called as non-repudiation. That means I cannot deny that I have done something wrong. Is it clear? I cannot deny that I have done something wrong. So I have to make sure these three factors or these two factors, CIA and AAA, is met. Is it clear? That's it. So see, when you, what all issues, that this is the primary thing we have to understand. What all issues you have in the on-premises, you have almost all the same issues in the cloud also. See, moving to cloud doesn't mean that you are completely taking all, or you're completely moving all the responsibility and everything to the cloud provider. You have a lot of responsibilities. The cloud provider have a lot of responsibilities. It's a completely shared one. I'll give you some kind of threats which is more specific to the cloud. These threats are again more specific to cloud now. What happens is, like the normal security threats you have, we have almost 11 threats which is addressed by the CSA, Cloud Security Alliance. So the first one is data breach. Basically, it's about, data breach is basically about, like for example, you are storing your data can be leaked or your data is copied in an unauthorized way, misconfiguration or inadequate change control, lack of cloud security strategy, insufficient identity, account hijacking. So all these things are the concerns which we have more specific to the cloud. So team, can you tell me what is the insider threat? Can you tell me what is the insider threat?
So people or your team members or who have a malicious activity, which is the biggest threat for the system, because he knows in all the information which is like development, what are the things controls are implemented and how to, right? He knows all information. That is the biggest threat, and you don't know.
Disgruntled employee.
Exactly. See, I'll tell you. See, it's very simple. Let's say, for example, I work in a particular company. So I know the company information. I know what is happening in the company. I know the servers. I know the storage and everything about the company. So what I'll do is, I am just a malicious person which is inside the company, which is a company employee who try to do harm to the company. Let's say, for example, try to leak the data in the company for money or some other purpose, or maybe for some kind of other issues. Anyway, this particular issue cannot be solved 100%. That's a primary problem which we have. I'll give an example. Okay, you are moving to cloud, right? Let's say, for example, you are moving to AWS or Azure or Google or any cloud services. Okay. How can you make sure the cloud provider employees are safe? How can you make sure the cloud provider employee is not leaking anything? Anyone, is there any way we can do that? Can we make sure the cloud provider's employees are not leaking our data?
There is no such tool. So there is, yes, definitely. So there are many things, like if the cloud providers have a third party, so there is no control. So we can have all the details, SLA and everything, but there is no such option available.
Exactly. That is a problem, right? So that means that, okay, we have a cloud provider. The cloud provider's employees is most likely, let's say, for example, they have a disgruntled employee, or they have a person who is actually malicious or just angry with the cloud provider. Maybe he can also copy this, right? He can also, do the same, right? He can just log into some servers, take the customer's data and leak it, right? It is also possible. So to avoid these kind of issues, to avoid these kind of problems, we can have a lot of mechanisms. For example, the simplest way we can do is encryption. Let's say, for example, if I encrypt my data, if I encrypt my data and store it in the cloud provider, even if an employee or a malicious person inside the cloud provider will leak the data or try to copy the data, he will not be able to access the data. Why? Because he don't have the key for encryption. He have the encrypted data only, right? Likewise, we have a lot of threats for the cloud platforms also. Clear? So we have a lot of things for the cloud platforms also. So that is why we need a lot of professionals in the cloud computing focusing more on security. Okay. So This is the primary word I want to tell you. Whenever you're talking about cloud security, this is the primary word I want to tell you. Cloud security requires a new strategic mindset. That means it is not about, okay, thinking, let's say the cloud provider is there, he will take care of everything. It's not like that. It is about how to design the solution in specific to the particular platform. I'll give an example. Now we have a lot of people who is learning cloud, and we have a lot of people who know very good about the cloud and all. Let's say, for example, I have seen a lot of people who say, okay, Krish, I am good in cloud. That means that people know what are the services there. People know how to implement that. But now the problem arises is how these things can be done securely. Let's say, for example, previously we have something called as SDLC, Software Development Lifecycle. Now we are focusing more on something called as secure SDLC. So previously we have something called as monitoring and logging. Now we have something called as secure monitoring and logging. So like the way we have a lot of new roles coming up for this cloud computing and specifically security. Is it clear? So, and definitely you can see that a lot of cloud providers have a lot of solutions. Like for example, you go to every cloud provider. Now the cloud providers know, okay, the security is always there. The security problems are always there. So they must address the security. They know that cloud is more vulnerable to attacks now. Why? Because all the companies are moving to cloud, and when you are moving to cloud, that means that the cloud is basically more exposed than the on-premise infrastructure. So that means that definitely the cloud is in higher risk. Clear? The cloud is in higher risk. So even if the cloud providers have a lot of controls, a lot of solutions for handling the security features or security issues, as a cloud security professional, you must know how to utilize it, how to place it in the right place. That is where these kind of certifications will help you on that. Fine. So team, any queries till now? Any queries you have till now, team? Feel free to ask, or you can put it in chat box also. Any queries we have, team? Anyone?
So I have one question. So when we talk about when we talk about security, so do we specifically look into like because I understand the concern and everything. So do we specifically look into like how the solution will be designed, how's the secure the solution, or how exactly? Because I'm still not clear when we talk about security. So which all areas we will cover? Sorry for that.
Yeah, I'll tell you. So let's say, for example, okay, we are I'm as a cloud professional. I moved. Okay, my company want to move to cloud. I'm just moving to cloud. In that strategy, what happens is, okay, we go through the cloud provider. We have a lot of solutions. Like for example, we have CloudWatch for monitoring in AWS, CloudTrail for logging. So we have a lot of solutions. But when we are planning the solutions for our deployment, there is something called as secure designing. When we are planning to design the cloud solution, okay, when we are planning to deploy this on cloud solution, or when we are planning to implement this in a strategic way, you have to make sure each of these security controls are placed in such location that it is addressing the threat directly. I'll give an example. Let's say, for example, when we are talking about cloud or when we are talking about security, what are the areas we will consider? The primary area we will consider is monitoring and logging. I have to make sure that whatever things I am doing is having a record. So I must make sure we have a continuous monitoring and continuous logging. The second thing is we have to make sure we must be having the compliance factors. Like for example, is my data safe? How much my data is stored according to the compliance factors I am expecting? And the third thing is, how can I make sure my data is not copied by somebody else? And the next thing is, how can I make sure my network and the whole servers I'm deploying is secure and safe from attacks? So for all this, almost all this, the cloud providers are giving you a lot of solutions. But as a security professional, you must know how to connect the dots. You must know how to connect these solutions in a channel in such a way that it can completely mitigate the issues. Is it clear? Is it clear, Rom?
Yeah.
Perfect. And Vipul, will we understand how to design? Yeah, of course, yes. You must understand how to design the cloud security architecture. I'll just focus on that in this curriculum, but still, I'll give an example. Let's say, for example, I'll just show you a diagram. Give me a second. I'll just show you a picture. You'll be more able to understand.
Hi Chris, this is Gajanan. I have a question.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah. So basically, if you see when this cloud has been came into market, IT market, lot of
Okay.
features and like Google or Azure or the AWS, all cloud solutions are giving some solution. They have lots of services. In fact, all services like if you see AWS IAM, Identity
Okay.
Access Management, the security, this particular service is provided by each and every cloud. But then also, if you see into the market, they have more focus from the solution architect point of view. My point is, now if you see, although everybody know now, in fact, everybody is understand that the security is major concern when we are moving from on-premise to cloud. But then also, there are very less jobs where are very focused on the security, because what I feel, most of the organization feels that is a part of solution architect person who will design solutions such kind of that they will consider the security as well. But if you see from the legacy point of view, there are a lot of security now. Cyber security is a totally separate domain. But when we move to the cloud, I'm not seeing that kind of specialization or very much focus from the security point of view. So I'm considering from that point of view how it is going to be, segregation of duties, and how it would be a different from the solution architect or very much focus on only security area. Because security, if you see any use, let's say use EC2 or S3 services, for that purpose also you need to be considered the security. But that is the part of solution architect who will design that security, consider security.
Yes, I'll explain. Yes. Okay. So basically what happens is, I have seen that. I'm getting this queries always. Like, for example, when we are moving to cloud, we have a lot of job roles: cloud architect, cloud operations expert, cloud monitoring, and most people tell me that, okay, Krish, we are not seeing much opportunities in cloud for security. But still, I'll just give an example. See, this is a list of job roles I have just seen today in the job portal. I'll give an example. See, let's say, for example, I'm just trying to show you an example, just trying to give you a demo on this. Please wait. Yeah. See, currently I am searching for a job in cloud. Okay. Let me search and show you the result. Give me a second. Give me a second. It will open now. So these job roles you can see now. Okay, these job roles you see now. Okay, these job roles you see now is just what I searched now. See this? It is because, okay, just giving an example now. See, these job roles you can see now, everything is based on cloud only. See? Uttam, can you just try to disconnect and reconnect? Others, can you see my slide? See my website and everything?
Yes, we can see.
Perfect. Okay. So, see, you can see this here. See, all these things you are seeing here is like job roles. And see what is the experience level. I'll explain. Don't worry, I have this. I know this concern. People are asking, okay, Krish, we need experience, right? We need that, we need this and all. But still, see, you can see lot of job roles here. These job roles are some examples that I searched just now, a few hours back from this website. This kind of websites. See this? These are all part of cloud only. See, only thing is the strategy you're searching, how you are searching job. That is a primary thing. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Let's say, for example, I'm an enterprise moving to cloud. Let's say, for example, I have a company and I'm deploying solutions in the cloud. As you see, definitely, yes, they say this is the responsibility of the cloud architect. But still, now people insist, even if you are a cloud architect, you must know the security. Why? Because they don't want to take the headache. Because you're actually talking about the data of the customers. You're just concerning about the company's business. Considering a lot of factors like this, person who is more experienced in the security first. Is it clear? Is it clear, bro?
Yeah, Krish, I got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and definitely, like if somebody tell you, okay, we don't see jobs for cloud security, we don't see jobs for cloud developer, we don't see jobs for some other thing, like for example, for database specialization. So all these things, let's say AWS or Azure or Google or any platform. As I'm telling you, we have a lot of job roles coming up. I'll give you an example. When I started my cloud journey, it was like, okay, there is only one role, cloud architect. But after that, again, it's split up into cloud architect, cloud operators. Then it's split up into, okay, cloud developer, cloud API specialist. Then it's about compliance specialist. Then it's about security. Then it's about database. Likewise, the role is splitting up again and again. That is why the cloud providers or these certification cloud providers are also dividing or giving now a lot of certifications. Is it clear, team? That's it. And as a cloud architect or as a cloud security architect, you must know the cloud is that much in demand now, or the cloud security is that much in demand now. Then I'll give you a very simple example. It is not only about data. Let's, for example, nowadays the IoT is getting a lot of hit in the market, right? So can you tell me what is IoT? Anyone, what is IoT?
Internet of Things.
Okay, what is that?
So all kind of services or what kind of features you are looking for, those are available in the form of internet.
Okay. So I'll give an example. Yeah, I'll tell you. Let's say, for example, we have this air conditioners, refrigerators. We have the smart cameras, mobile phones, smart watches, computers, laptops, even bikes, cars. So all these things which we have around us, all the electronic things which we have around us is connected to each other. Let's say, for example, think of your car informing your air conditioner that he is coming and he want to have this temperature. And think of your laptop informing your car that, okay, next he has to go to this place. Think of your mobile phone just informing your informing your wife, or just let's say some other people that you'll be reaching by this time. So all these devices are connected to each other, and it can help the human to automate and to make the things so use. So now what happens is almost all the IoT platforms and everything is moving to cloud. And definitely that's a risk. Why? Because see, I told you, for example, if you want to enter your home, first of all, there must be a lot of factors. There are a lot of authentication factors. So like this, for each and everything, like your webcam, like your TV, like your air conditioners, like your mobile phones. So all these things are lacking proper authentication mechanisms. So hackers are now, what happens is, hackers are utilizing it a lot. And definitely all these IoT platforms nowadays want to operate in cloud only. So there also we need a lot of professionals. Why? Because there must be proper professionals to see if that can be, like, for example, how to make sure that the cloud platform is secure to deploy a IoT platform for AI, for machine learning, etc. Is it clear? That's it. Just give me a second. Yeah. So, and definitely, as I said, in cloud also, the cloud providers now ready. Why? Because every 6 months or 1 year, the cloud providers are releasing a lot of services which is strictly for the security only. Why? Because they are concerned about security. So they are also releasing new solutions which can provide you effective security mechanisms, right? We have a lot of cloud providers coming up with a lot of solutions now also. And the first question which will come is, will we go is it better for us to go to a vendor specific certification or vendor neutral certification? The first thing is, what is the difference between going to a vendor specific or vendor neutral certification? The first thing is, when we go for a vendor specific certification, we will learn more about the services and the tactics which we can use in that particular cloud provider. Let's say, for example, you study AWS, you learn more about AWS services and how to deploy AWS secure services in a secure way. Let's say, for example, you're going for Azure certifications, you learn more about how we can deploy and how we can do Azure things or Azure services to make it things secure. So like the same way, it is more specific. But if you go for a vendor neutral certification, definitely it can give you a lot of advantages. But the problem is here. The problem here is there is two words you have to understand: strategy. Strategy and tactics. Can you tell me the difference between these two things? Strategy and tactics. What is the difference between these two words? Strategy and tactics. Anyone?
I guess in simple way, strategy is like what is your plan, and tactics is like how you how you implement that, or what are the phases like
Exactly.
short term, mid term, and long term.
Exactly. For example, let's say I want to implement monitoring, or I want to deploy something on the cloud. So I say I want to deploy some 5 servers. I want to deploy some like, for example, I want to deploy some security solutions and all. That is the strategy. So how do you do it in the real time? It's what you call as the tactics. So in vendor specific certifications, you are more focusing on the strategy. But in vendor neutral certifications, you are focusing more on the strategy. And in vendor specific certifications, you are focusing more on the tactics. Don't forget. In vendor specific certifications, you are focusing more on the tactics. Let's say, for example, in AWS, you have to do it. Like, for example, you implement the monitoring solution here, then you implement the logging solution. So likewise, you have a tactics. This is how you have to do it in the real time. Is it clear? So then definitely people can ask, the first question they can arise is, why do I go for AWS? Definitely my company can use Azure or Google or Oracle or any other cloud, right? Or maybe a mixed strategy. In most companies, they have a multi-cloud strategy. That means that no company is biased to AWS. Why do I have to bias to AWS? I can use any solution, right? Any solution which is meeting my requirements is fine. But why you learn AWS? The answer is, first of all, AWS is the first and the primary cloud provider who started this cloud platform in the public. Okay, they started in 2006, and still also they hold more than 50% of the market share. Okay, and the second factor is, and the most important factor is, see, almost all the providers like Azure or Google or Oracle or any other cloud providers, what happens is they design the cloud solution based on AWS. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. Okay, AWS has a console. AWS is providing some services. And when you go for Azure and Google, they say that like AWS, we have the solution. Like AWS, we have that solution. I'll give an example. You can find this particular document in the Microsoft website. I have seen that. If you go to the Microsoft website and if you can see this document, I'll just share a document now. Give me a second. I can show you a document which is so interesting. See, this is the document which is called as Azure vs Amazon. This document is provided by Microsoft in the Microsoft website. See, they say that, okay, if you want to use a service in AWS the service name is this one. The Azure, the service name is that one. The same way, they are comparing that everyone is benchmarking it based on AWS. So that means that if you learn AWS, like for a professional who can work in AWS or who know the strategy of AWS, can definitely learn the other cloud platforms in a very simple way. For example, you're learning AWS. Like, for example, you're learning this AWS in such a way that, okay, this is how you have to implement it on the AWS. The same way you can do it in Azure or Google with a different service name. That's all. So those people who is familiar with the AWS platform can deploy the same thing in Azure also with a very minimal effort. Why? Because the things are same, only the name and the interface theme is changing. Is it clear? That is why you have to learn AWS. Is it clear, team? That's it. Hope you're able to follow. Team, you're able to follow, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So before I go to the security certifications level things, the first thing I want to tell you is, see, like all the other cloud providers, AWS also has a huge infrastructure worldwide. AWS also has a very huge infrastructure worldwide. Like for example, let's say you go for AWS or Azure or Google, they have a huge infrastructure. That means that in AWS, they have a lot of locations which we call as regions. Okay, in AWS, we have a word called as regions. Okay. See, AWS is also having something called as regions. So region means it's a geographical location where they place their data centers. Okay, that's it. I can show you a picture of that. Just wait. See, these blue dots you can see here is the regions. Okay, in the this orange ring you can see here is the regions in North America. This is in South America. This is in Europe, Middle East, Africa. This is Asia Pacific. Likewise, AWS, Azure, and Google also is having a huge infrastructure. Is it clear? And definitely, as I told you, when we are moving to cloud, the security is not at all about completely transferring to the cloud provider. The security is actually shared. I told you the security is always shared. That means that we call it as a shared responsibility model. We call the security as a shared responsibility model. That means that the AWS is having some security strategies or which they have to do, which is their responsibility, and the customer also is having some security responsibility. So we can say it as two words: security of the cloud and security in the cloud. Okay. The security of the cloud provider or security of the cloud platform is always the responsibility of the cloud provider, and security in the cloud platform is always the responsibility of the customer. Okay, that means that, for example, I'll give an example. Let's say, for example, AWS having a data center. Okay, almost all the data of the customers, now what happens is, I told you, the customer is putting everything on the cloud provider, on the cloud provider's data center. So when they are putting the data on the cloud provider's data center, okay, when they are putting the data on the cloud provider's data center, they are concerned about the security. That is why the cloud providers make sure their data centers are highly secure and their data centers are foolproof. So for example, like protecting the physical infrastructure, like protecting the hardware, the software, the facilities inside, everything is taken care by the cloud provider because it is the security of the cloud. But when we talk about security in the cloud, it's about the services you're using. In most cases, security in the cloud is the responsibility of the consumer or the customer. That means, I'll give an example. Let's say, for example, you're deploying a service in AWS. Let's say, for example, I have a service called as EC2 in AWS. EC2 in the sense means there is a service called as EC2. In the sense means it's a service which helps you deploy virtual machines. You can deploy virtual machines in this particular service. So what happens is the cloud provider, that means AWS, will provide you the physical servers, or let's say they will provide you virtual machines. But from installing the operating system to configuring the operating system to managing the operating system, the security, the application, the data, and everything, it's your responsibility. So like the same way, the responsibility is always shared based on the type of service you are utilizing. Is it clear, team? Any doubts in this till now? Any doubts in this?
No.
Perfect. Others? Okay. So That is why I told you cloud AWS is one of the best providers. No, so I'll tell you an idea about the AWS certifications now, and after that we will focus on the AWS security specialty topics. Okay. So as for now, as for today, this is the list of certifications offered by AWS. So we have certifications in 4 levels: a foundation level, associate level, professional level, and specialty level. So foundation level is nothing, it's all about a very basics, like very introduction. We can say that, okay, to learn the very fundamentals of cloud, to learn the very fundamentals of the cloud platform called as AWS, go for this foundation level certification. And the next is associate level. In the associate level, they are expecting you to have a very big or basic skill set of all the services in the cloud. Like almost like, say for example, you must know the services in a such a way that you can do the basic implementations and all. Is it clear? The associate certification is more specific, that you are focusing on all the services in a very basic way. Like for example, you must know how to implement virtual machines, you must know how to manage storage, you must know how to manage the identity and access control, you must know how to manage the networking, you must know how to manage the development services. So for all these kind of things, you can go for the associate certification. And the next we have the professional certification. Professional means those things you study in the associate level things, it is the same. The difference is we are focusing more on the, or making it more advanced. Like for example, in the associate level, you will learn you have to implement this in particular way. The professional things, you learn the most advanced tactics for doing the same. Is it clear? And finally, we have something called as a specialty certification. When I say specialty certification, they are focusing on some specific areas. Like for example, they are focusing for security, they are focusing more on networking, they are having ML certification. Likewise, they are focusing on a particular domain, a particular area. Is it clear? That's it. So these are the current certifications they have. Okay. But previously, if you want to do any certification, like for example, let's say previously if you want to do a professional certification, what you have to do is, first of all, you have to go through the foundation level certification, then you have to go through the, first of all, you have to go to the associate certification, then you have to go to the professional certification. And if you want to do the security or specialty certification, go for associate first, then professional, then specialty. But now what happens is, you can directly go to any certification without a prerequisite. That's a primary thing. You can go to any certification directly without going through a prerequisite. Is it clear? Is it clear, team? So we can, let's say for example, you want to do the AWS certified security specialty, you want to do the AWS certified solutions architect professional or machine learning specialty or whatever it is, you can do it directly. You don't have to pass all the other things. Yes.
Hey Krish, Ashutosh here.
Yeah.
I do have a question. I do have a question on the thing that you mentioned, saying that you can jump to any certification irrespective of the hierarchy. But for example, if someone wants to jump to a specialty certification regarding to the database, is it necessary that he should be having some background knowledge or a intermediate knowledge of AWS or something, a prior knowledge where if you want to jump to any of the certification?
Yes, of course, yes. It is mandatory that, it is always mandatory that you must have, for example, I'll give an example for the specialty. So let's say, for example, you want to do this AWS certified security specialty, which is one of the industry hot certifications. Definitely, as I said, you can directly go for that. You can definitely directly write the exam. But the problem here is, you must have a thorough knowledge of almost some 70% topics in the AWS certified solutions architect associate level thing. If you don't have it, definitely you cannot. For example, in this certification, I say we have a solution which we can implement this in the secure way. So you must have a prerequisite of that solution in the associate level thing. Is it clear? Even if you don't have to get the certification, you must have the foundation knowledge in the any of the associate level thing if you want to do the specialty. Otherwise, what happens is you will get confused. It will get more complex. That's why. Clear?
Yeah.
Clear, deal?
Yep. Thanks.
Perfect. So Now just want to give you one more idea on this, because people who are planning to do the associate level certification, so what happens is AWS is changing the exam path. So what happens is currently the certification called as AWS Certified Solutions Architect Associate is there. This is there, but still now what happens is they are changing the exam curriculum. So that means that the previous exam curriculum topic was this one, ASAAC01. The exam code was this one, and currently the code is this one. The second thing is not only the exam code is changing, the curriculum is also changing. See, previously this was the curriculum. This was the previous curriculum, old one. Okay, you can write this exam mostly till this month, and I think it's till March first week. You can write March 22nd. You can write the exam. Okay, until March 22nd you can write this exam. But after March 22nd or from March 23rd onwards, you can write this particular exam only. Don't forget. Okay, the exam is changing a lot. And they have raised the number of domains also. Is it clear? That's it. And also people will discuss that. We will discuss it personally because that is not a part of the that's fine. Definitely you can just give me a call, I can discuss. Okay, fine. Yeah, fine. The next one is, see, they are introducing a few more certifications. Like for example, let's say they are introducing a certification called as AWS Certified Database Specialty. It's a database certification. Okay, they are actually giving a new certification called as AWS Certified Database Specialty. And also they are changing one certification called as, previously it was called as AWS Certified Data Analytics Specialty. Now it is calling previously it was called as AWS Certified Big Data Specialty. Now it is called as AWS Certified Data Analytics Specialty. Is it clear? That's it. So this is changes which is happening. So now what we'll do is we'll focus more on the AWS part. I'll tell you what are things you have to study or how you can prepare for the AWS Certified Security Specialty certification. Team, any other concerns you have, team, till now? Any other concerns? Any other queries about the
Krishna,
jobs or roles? Yeah, tell me.
Yeah. So any changes in the security specialty?
Nothing. But that question is very relevant, Sandeep. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
See, team, most people are asking me one question. Chris, the problem we are facing while trying to book for AWS exams is AWS is introducing a lot of technologies, a lot of service every day. So I'll give an example. Say, let's say, just give me a second. I'll open a console now. Give me a second. So this is the AWS console you can see here. Let me log into the account. I'll just show you an example now. The question he asked is very, very relevant because I'll just show you, then only you'll be able to understand.
And similar to this question, so do we need to book this through Prometric Center or have exactly this exam?
The exam is booked to the Pearson VUE thing, but still you don't have to book it through the Pearson VUE or Prometric. You can go for AWS.training website. The site called as AWS.training. From here you will be routed to the Pearson VUE website. Okay.
So specific centers only we can give exam.
Yeah, for example, you can give your PIN code and they will search for the nearest centers and they will show it to you. Okay. See, this is the console now. Just before some 3 months, when I open this console, currently you can see the list of services here. See this? You can see the list of services here. It was only some 60% of it some 3 months back. Now they have introduced a lot of more technologies. So every day also they are introducing new services. See, I'll give an example. For example, for the security perspective, these services called as AWS Security Hub and AWS Detective, these kind of services are just newly introduced. Basically some 1 or 2 months back they introduced. So likewise, a lot of services they are introducing, maybe we can say every day. So when we study for the certification, how it can affect us. As I told you, even if we are following the curriculum of Amazon, the primary thing you have to understand is any service in the Amazon, any service which is concerned about the security in Amazon will be there for the exam. But one thing is there. Let's say, for example, they are introducing a new service. Amazon is introducing a new service now. For the next 6 months, okay, for the next 6 months, this particular service will not be there for the exam. Is it clear? For the next 6 months, this particular service will not be there for the exam. Is it clear?
Okay.
So that is why, yeah, now what happens is, okay, the AWS certified security specialty exam is there. So last time when I took this certification, it was about a few topics are missing because it was not in the exam. But now what happens is we have some 4 to 5 topics new because the topics reaches 6 months. The particular services reach 6 months. That's why, right? The same way, the number of topics can always change. So before you prepare or before you book the exam, you must make sure you address all the latest services. Otherwise, what happens is you'll not be expecting that services. That's why. Is it clear, team? Any other concerns you have?
So
Anything else?
anything changed from last December?
Of course, yes. From last December, we have some new services like, for example, AWS Security Hub, AWS Detective. A lot of services are now there. These are
Okay.
actually changed. Yeah.
Okay,
I'll just do one thing. While we discuss the topics on this AWS exam, I'll tell you what all things you have to focus on in each domain. Is it clear?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else, team? Any other doubts, team? Yes, people. Yes, people. We will understand the design of the cloud security architecture. Sure. Definitely that you must understand, right? Then only we can able to do it in real time. See, the first point I want to tell you is getting the certification is very simple. You learn the dumps, some previous questions, you can pass the exam. But getting the certification is like you're getting a driving license. This is my point for you. Okay, getting a certification is just like you're getting a driving license. That doesn't mean that you can drive everywhere. That doesn't mean that you can actually, you're an expert driver. So certification is all about just you can say it as a visiting card. You want to go to your company, you want to showcase your skill set to your clients, or you want to showcase your skill set to your employer, you want to change your company. In that case, certification is very important. But other than that, the skill set is what matters. See, for example, you can see that the job roles I have shown you. These job roles, they are telling that you need this thing, you need this skill set. And certification is just a starting point, that's all. Is it clear? The second thing is, most people ask me, definitely when you're going for any roles in the cloud, when you're searching for a lot of roles in the cloud, definitely experience is a very important factor. Because they are asking for experience. Krish, I have seen that we have asking experience for the last 2 years experience, 5 years experience, 10 years experience, or maybe more than that. Companies are asking for experience a lot of times. So, see, let's say for example, I'll give you an idea of that. For example, if the company is saying, okay, we need an experience of 2 to 5 years. Okay, the company is saying you need an experience of 2 to 5 years to apply for this job. So what happens is, what you can do is, you can apply for that certification, you can apply for that particular job, and when you apply for the job, once the company calls out you for the interview, once your skill set, once your current skill set, if it is matching and if it is meeting the expectation of the company, like for example, if you're skilled, like you have a 2 or 5 years experience person, definitely that experience thing won't be a counting factor, because it's all about skill set. Is it clear? It's all about skill set. For example, let's say I'm applying for a job. I have only 1 year of experience. Let's say I don't have any experience. But if my skill set is so strong, that I'm well aware of what we have to do in the real time, then definitely that won't be a problem. Is it clear? My skill set is what matters. Clear, team? Any other thing? Any other doubts, team? Anything else? Any doubts?
No, Krishna.
Yeah, others?
You can
Any doubts you have, team? You can type, put in the chat box, or you can unmute and ask. Okay, fine. Fine, that's it. So now we will focus more on the certification pattern. So first of all, I'll tell you, this is for the current strategy. Like for example, as I told you, the certification topics can always change, but as for now, this is the topics. Okay, that's it. So as I told you, the certification don't require any kind of previous pre-certifications. Like for example, there is no previous certification requirements, but these are the skills which they validate in this exam. Okay, you can just go through it. These are the skills which is validated in the exam. And the exam is actually the exam is actually a multiple choice one. It's so easy, nothing more. There is no labs in the exam. The exam perspective, it's a pure theory one. But now what the providers does is they are not only following the dumps only, they are actually, what happens is the questions the provider is asking is more onto scenario based. That means, let's say for example, they are asking more about questions. Okay, this is what happening in my company. So how do I do that? How do I address this? How do I manage the situation? Likewise, they are focusing more on the real-time skill set. The second one is, okay, there can be multiple choice, multiple answers also. And the total time is 170 minutes, nearly 3 hours. Okay, and the cost is $300. And definitely the passing score is 750 out of 1000. Is it clear, team? And you can book the exam very easily. You can go to the aws.training website, create an account and start booking your exam. Like for example, you can actually log in and book your exam. It's very easy for you. Fine. That's it. Give me a second. So these are the AWS recommended prerequisites for you. We have a lot more, but just I have consolidated these two. Okay. They want you to have a 5 years of IT experience, more specific to security. Okay. It is not a mandatory thing. It is not a mandatory thing. It is just a prerequisite. You must have a minimum of 5 years of experience, IT experience, more specific to AWS security. And the second one is, this is my way of saying thing. As I told you, you must have the skill set which is mapping to any associate level certification. More specific like AWS or SysOps is fine. Clear? If you have this, definitely you can study this and go for the exam. Okay, that's it. So these are the domains. So team, we have total 5 domains in the exam. We have total 5 domains. Domain 1, incident response. Domain 2, logging and monitoring. Domain 3, infra security. Domain 4, IAM. Domain 5, data protection. So these are the 5 domains which we have for the AWS certified security specialty exam. So in this, for each domain, you have to focus on a lot of topics. I have seen a lot of people complain that I know the topic, but I was not able to answer the question. Chris, I know this, but I was not able to answer the scenario. It is why? Because you are just trying to learn that in the perspective of the architect only, or you're just trying to learn the particular topic in the perspective of the operations only. You're not focusing on the security. So when we're talking about AWS certified security specialty certification, you always make sure you think everything in the security perspective. Let's say for example, as an architect, I know I must make sure there must be proper logging and monitoring solution. Okay. As an architect, I must make sure that I know I have a proper logging and monitoring solution. But as a security specialist, I must know that logging and monitoring solution is not hackable. It is not easy to modify. It is not easy, or it is not having any kind of modifications done. It is completely secure. So as an architect, I know this is how you have to implement a virtual machine. But as a security specialist, you have to know this is how you have to secure it from attacks. So as an architect, you must know this is how you have to design a network, secure network. But as a security specialist, you must know these are the factors which we have to consider in the security perspective while implementing this particular network. Is it clear? That is why These topics must be very carefully understood. And as I told you, the topics can always change based on the cloud provider. Like for example, let's say currently AWS is having some services. Maybe tomorrow in the exam they can add more topics also. So this is a domain 1. So domain 1 of the exam is all about incident response. Team, can you tell me what is an incident? Anyone, what is an incident, team? Anyone, what is an incident?
Security incidents is a negative impact to the services where the data is compromised or breach happen.
Okay. Anything else?
Something unwanted happen is an incident.
Perfect. So, okay, fine. Let's say, for example, we have an attack. We have a person who's made some modification without proper approval. Let's say any event which is unplanned is what called as an incident. Is it clear? So in cloud, let's say I'll give an example. Let's say for example, we have a server. Let's say our server is compromised. That's an incident. Let's say my credentials, my username or password or my credentials are actually compromised, or somebody has copied it. It is exposed in the public. It's an incident. So this domain will tell you what all factors you have to consider in the incident perspective. Like for example, how to mitigate these incidents, how to respond to the incident. Like for example, let's say, team, what is a DDoS attack? What is a DDoS attack, team? Anyone? DDoS attack?
Denial of services, where the attack happened and the respective server or the web server or services are not able to respond. And
Exactly.
Loss of
yes.
services.
So what is the whole purpose of having a DOS attack or DDoS attack?
Reputation, or you have a grudge, or right?
Primary thing,
competition.
Impact the availability.
It's making a service unavailable.
Yeah, it's the primary thing is unavailable. For example, I am doing a DDoS attack not to have the data loss, or not to hack the servers, or not to copy the data. My purpose of having a DDoS attack is to make the machine unavailable, or make the machine not be able to provide the services, right? So basically this happens a lot. So for these DDoS attacks on everything, let's say something like that happened, how can you respond to it? Or let's say, for example, maybe one day you are getting a message from AWS that you are trying to attack another servers. Your machine is compromised, and because of your machine, our other customers are affected. How do you respond to that particular mail AWS has sent you? So like all these things we will learn in this domain 1. Incident response. What are the strategy? What are the perfect security strategy you have to follow if there is an incident happening? And I will tell you one more thing. Learning all this in theory will not give you any benefit. You have to make sure all these things you are learning must be on the real-time perspective. You have to make sure all these things you are learning must be on the real-time perspective, must be on the learning perspective, or this is how you are doing it in the real time. Yeah, that's it. The next one is, in this domain, you have very few things. Learn one service called as AWS Guard Duty, and learn the incident response strategy specific to AWS. Okay, and know what is a AWS abuse notice. So I told you AWS abuse notice is something which you receive. I'll give an example. I'll show you an example for the AWS abuse notice now. Just give me a second. I'll show you an example. Let's say one day you are getting a mail like this. See, one day you are getting a mail like this. That means your server is trying to do some kind of attack or some kind of scanning. So how do you respond to this mail? What happens if you don't respond to this mail properly? Because these are all the responsibility of the security professional, right? So these kind of things are what we are learning in the domain 1. Is it clear? That's it. So the next one is in domain 2. So domain 2 is one of the most important domain team. Domain 2 is the most important. Why? Because in domain 2 we learn about the logging and monitoring. Team, what is the importance of logging and monitoring? Anyone? What is the importance of having a logging and monitoring solution in your company? Can we do it without that?
It helps in audit and compliance.
Okay, definitely. It helps in audit and compliance. Then It helps in accountability also. It helps in learning what is happening in the real time. It helps in learning what are the problems or what are the root cause of this particular problem caused. So hundreds of things are there. So for all of these kind of things, we need proper logging and monitoring solutions. And definitely the cloud provider is giving you a lot of solutions for that. In this, you must know how to securely implement the monitoring and logging solutions, and what is the scope of monitoring. So whenever you're designing any kind of monitoring solution, the first thing you have to design is the scope of monitoring. Scope means what all things you have to monitor. Is it clear? Define the scope of monitoring. You must know how to place the solutions. And let's say I'll give an example. Let's say you have an AWS account. You have a proper log files for doing everything. So what if the log file is also deleted? You have to make sure your log files are also secure. You have to make sure your log files are also not compromised by anybody else. Is it clear? So this domain is basically focusing on the logging and monitoring aspects. So in this, these are the topics which is specific. First of all, understand what is a vulnerability, and then learn about AWS Inspector. So AWS Inspector is one of the very famous vulnerability assessment tools. So we have tools like Nessus, Nexpose, etc. for vulnerability assessment. So likewise in AWS, we have a tool called as AWS Inspector, which is actually improving every day. It's a vulnerability assessment tool. Then AWS has introduced a new tool which is called as AWS Security Hub, which is combining a lot of tools together to give you a proper visibility. Okay. Then we have a WAF. What is WAF team? What is a firewall team? Tell me what is a firewall? Anyone? What is a firewall team?
It monitors the traffic and prevents data exfiltration.
Okay. Basically, it's monitor traffic, right? For example, it will monitor the incoming and outgoing traffic, right? So what are the things we will monitor in that? Tell me, what are the things we will monitor by a firewall? Tell me, team. What are the things which is monitored by a firewall?
All the ports, various HTTP or various IP related traffic.
The porter, okay. Okay, we can do the monitoring based on ports. Then, fine, yes. Yeah.
Network traffic.
Fine, that means what are the things we can monitor? The IP address, the source address, the destination address, the protocol, like the port number. Yeah, everything. Fine. But that is limited to that particular functionality only. That is why it is called as L3 firewall. But now what happens is we have advanced firewall solution called as web application firewall, which is having more capability to find attacks for, like, for example, for DDoS attacks, cross-site scripting. For those kind of advanced things, this firewall will give a solution. So there is a solution called as web application firewall. So you will learn WAF also in this. Okay. Then you have to learn a service called as AWS Systems Manager, which is a very important part of all the things. Okay. AWS Systems Manager is a part of all the domains actually. When we talk about domain 1 or domain 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, this particular thing will come into picture. So it's very important. It can give you patching, available compliance, lot of factors it will verify. And this is the monitoring tool used by AWS, which is called as CloudWatch. This is the logging solution. Okay. This is the querying solution, log querying solution. And this is very important, compliance perspective. I'll give an example. Let's say, for example, whatever things you do in AWS or the cloud provider, CloudTrail, a service called as CloudTrail is there. That particular solution will tell you who done that and when he done, what he done, everything they will do. But this service called as AWS config will tell you what happened exactly. Okay, CloudTrail will tell you this particular person entered at this time, has opened this console and issued this command. CloudTrail. And this config solution will tell you, okay, this change is what happened in the real time. So both the services must be implemented in a secure way to make sure that is actually effectively giving you the visibility. And the next one is Macy. It's also a very comparatively new solution, Macy, which will intelligently scan for the let's say, for example, you accidentally share some credentials in the storage, or let's say you are trying to paste some kind of username or password in the public, the Macy will give you a report on that. And the next one is S3 events, which is more specific to storage. And finally, we have VPC flow logs. So VPC in the cloud means basically it's a secure network. Okay, VPC in the cloud means it's a secure network, virtual private cloud, we can say. That means all the things you're deploying in the AWS or Azure, whatever it is having a secure network. In AWS, we call it as VPC. In Azure, we call it as VNets. So we have to know what is coming inside and what is going out. That is taken care by the VPC flow logs. Okay, these are the primary topics you have to focus on the domain 2. And I'm repeating, these topics are okay, but you know how these topics or these services communicate each other to give you the effective monitoring solution. And this is the highest priority domain in the security specialty exam, which is called as the infrastructure security. In this particular domain, you must know how to build and implement a secure network in the AWS platform. I'll give an example. Let's say, for example, a company is telling, Krish, please deploy a solution which must be able to do a specific factors. I'll just show you a diagram here. Just wait. I'll show you a diagram now. Give me a second, team. See, this you see here is a AWS design diagram. See this? Let's say we have a DNS servers, we have web servers, we have application servers, we have database, a lot of things like that. So before designing all of this, you must know how to build a secure network around this, or how you must know where to isolate the components, what all servers to expose, what all servers you have to keep secure and private. So likewise, this particular domain as called as domain 3 will give you an idea of how to create a secure network and how to make sure each and every resource you are creating is accessible to public or not. Is it clear? That is why this domain is so important. Okay. And definitely in this, we have to study these factors. Especially the VPC is a primary topic in this domain, virtual private cloud, I told you. Then again, in this domain also, we have this AWS WAF. And you must know how to implement the IDS or IPS solutions in the AWS. And you must know a solution called as CDN. Team, what is a CDN service? Content Delivery Network. What is a CDN service, team? Let's say, for example, I'll just show you a diagram here. Just wait. Let's say we have a server here. Okay. We have a web server here. This is a web server. This particular web server is working in India. Okay. Yes, people, exactly. This particular web server is working in India. So what happens is those customers who are accessing the servers, from India, okay, those are customers who are accessing the website from India will get this website without any kind of hassle. Why? Because it's very near to it. But when we go beyond the region, like for example, let's say I am accessing it from some different region, let's say from US or UK or some other location outside India, what happens is maybe the website can be too slow. Maybe the page will not load. Maybe it can cause, like for example, it can show you some errors while opening the page because we have a lot of distance. If you configure a solution called as CDN, the Content Delivery Network, what happens is the content of this particular web servers, is getting cached to multiple locations worldwide. And those customers nearby to the cache can access the website directly without going to the web server. Is it clear? That is why the CDN is so important. And AWS also is having a CDN solution, which we call as CloudFront. Is it clear, team? CDN is clear? Is it clear, team? Others?
Yes.
Yeah, WAF operating levels layer 7, Tony. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. And the next one is AWS Shield. Why? Because, see, this service is so important. I'll tell you why. Why? Because AWS Shield is so important because I told you, this DOS and DDoS attack is actually one of the most important concerns in the security. Why? Because we cannot effectively prevent it completely. This DOS and DDoS attack is always there. Because why? Because most of the cases, this DOS attack or DDoS attack can cause enough damage. It can make the things unavailable. So AWS is having a dedicated service to fix this issue. AWS is having a dedicated service which can manage and which can prevent, and even if there is there, to fix the issue. That service is called as AWS Shield. Then we will study about APIs, AWS artifacts, AWS simple email service, systems manager, etc. Is it clear? This is what we study in the domain 3. And the next one is domain 4. And team, definitely, even if this domain is not this is the highest domain in the topic, but whenever I teach this topic, this is the most important topic I will consider: identity and access management. Why it is so important, team? Tell me why this IAM topic is so important.
Most important,
Can you tell me why?
who should have a what level of access, and what is the least privilege or whatever the minimum privilege required to perform the activity. So which is very important.
Yes. So who is supposed to do what? Like, for example, I have to make sure my cloud infrastructure is highly secure. Like, for example, only those people who is having the proper permission is able to access something. So likewise, I have to make sure my infrastructure is secure and have a strict role-based access control. Sorry, RBAC. I have to make sure I have a secure infrastructure where I can do the role-based access control. And the next thing is, I'll give you a simple example. So whenever you want to log in, you will enter the username and you will enter the password. So is this a secure mechanism, team? Is it secure to enter the username and password only? Is it secure to have a username and password only? No, right? So, what do you suggest?
Multi-factor.
Multi-factor authentication.
Yes. So basically, that is mandatory. You must have something called as a multi-factor authentication. Let's say I'll give an example. Let's say you try to open some console. It will ask you for a username and password. And once you enter your username and password, the next is you have to enter an OTP also. Or let's say you have to validate your fingerprint also. Something. So there must be a two-factor authentication at least. So like this, a lot of things, and definitely I'll give an example. Let's say, for example, I have a person called as user 1. Okay, currently this user 1 is working in a team called as network. I have a person called as user 1 working in the team called as network team. Okay, and currently I am promoting him to a team called as security. I am promoting this user 1 to a team called as security. So basically what happens is this user 1 will currently have the privilege for the network, and when I am promoting him to another group called as security, he will get the privilege of that also. Is it good? Is it fine to have both the privileges? So currently I'm working in network team. So I have all the privileges of the network team, and now I am moving to a security team. Is it okay that I can have all the privileges of the network team also? No, right? So what we have to do? We have to make sure before taking him to the next team, make sure the previous team authentication or authorizations or the things which he can access must be revoked. The access which he got because of he is a member of the previous team must be revoked. Why? Because otherwise it will take an issue called as it will create an issue called as authorization creep. Authorization creep. So authorization creep, what happens is, okay, you have the permission from multiple teams, which is not required for you. Let's say, for example, currently I am moving from team A to team B. I have permission of both the teams. So all this can always be a issue. That is why this topic I will consider as the primary importance. Why? Because this topic will give you the strong idea about how to handle the identity and access mechanisms and how to make sure you have a proper authentication, proper authorization, and proper accountability. And in this, we'll study about a topic called as AWS organizations. Why? Because this particular topic is so important. Let's say in most of the companies, it is not about having a single AWS account. In most of the companies, it is not about having a single AWS account. It is about having multiple AWS accounts. Why? Because company, and can anyone tell me why it is best to have multiple AWS accounts? Anyone?
To isolate production, non-production environments so the management will be in proper shape.
Okay, then
The most important
anything
is
else?
like I see is like a billing and then security concern. And if one credential compromise everything, you are entirely in risk because that particular credential.
Yes, of course. Yeah, both of these things are very important. Definitely, yes. Because, for example, if one is compromised, everything else can be compromised, right? So the next one is maybe it is to divide the teams. Like say, for example, for development team, we can have a separate account for test. So likewise, it serves a lot of functions, right? But here what happens is, okay, when you have multiple AWS accounts, the complexity of managing it will also increase. Like for example, let's say I have accounts team. I have 50 plus, or let's say I have 100 AWS accounts in the company. I have 100 AWS accounts. So the billing team must go to each and every account in this list and see the billing and pay the bill separately. It is not easy. So that is why we have a feature called as AWS organizations, where we can actually build an organization and combine all of our separate accounts to a single tree. So we can see the billing and we can manage everything in a centralized manner. So the service is so important. And I told you AWS Identity Access Management, the most critical service in AWS. Then you must know how to implement a multiple account strategy. AWS command line interface, you can see. You can access the AWS via graphical mode. The same way you have commands also, which we call as the AWS CLI. Then you have to learn about the AWS security token service. You must have a thorough understanding of the single sign-on and federation. Team, I'll just give an example of single sign-on federation. Let's say, for example, you log into your Gmail account, right? You log into your Gmail account. So when you log into your Gmail account, they will ask you for the username and password. You enter the username and password, you're logged in. And after that, in the new tab, if you try to open Google Drive, or if you try to open Google Docs, or if you try to open Google Play, it will automatically open without asking for the credentials. Why? Because it is having the single sign-on. Is it clear? The same way, what is federation? Let's say, for example, you are trying to log into a site called as makemytrip.com, goibbo.com, some websites. When you're trying to log into all these websites, what happens is, the primary thing you have is, okay, I'm trying to log into MakeMyTrip. So they will give you an option, log in with Facebook, log in with Google. So Google or Facebook is acting as the identity provider or verifying the identity for makemytrip.com, right? That is what you call as federation. Is it clear? Then you have to learn about the Active Directory, which is called as AWS Directory Services, then ACLs, resource-based policies, and the service called as Cognito, mobile service. So this is what you have to learn in the domain 4. And the next one is domain 5, which is the most important concern in the cloud, data. This domain is all about data. Why? Because I told you, you're taking all the data to your cloud provider. There is no way you can make it secure. Because why? Because all the data is the cloud provider only. So the only way to make sure your data is protected in the cloud is to properly encrypt and properly manage the encryption. Is it clear? So in the encryption, there is always a word called as key, because if you want to get the decrypt or open the data, you must need the key file. So you must know how to design and implement a proper key management and use it. You must know how to troubleshoot the key management. You must know how to implement the data encryption solution for data in rest and data in transit. Team, what is data in rest and data in transit? What is the difference? Let's say, for example, you have data copied onto your hard disk. It is there idle. That is what you call as data at rest. Let's say you're opening a website. The data is transferred in between the web server and your laptop. Data in transit. And we have one more type of data which is called as data in use. That means you are viewing my slide now. That means this is the data in use now. Is it clear? In this particular thing, you have to learn about a service called as AWS KMS, AWS HSM, the encryption mechanisms, how to ensure the encryption and security for the traffic also. Is it clear, team? So these are things, domains which we have in this particular course. Any doubts in this team till now? Any doubts you have? Anything? Any queries? You can ask your queries now. Others? Any queries? You can ask your queries now. So don't forget, the certification called as AWS is actually all about having the proper strategy and tactics. I'll tell you once again. See, learning this topic is not enough for the exam or for the job requirements. As I told you, how this is done in the real time. What are the special or options you have to make it secure? Let's say, for example, you implement a monitoring solution, you implement a logging solution, will not make it secure. How to combine all these services together to a form which can give you the optimal level of security, optimal level of compliance is what you have to learn in this. So this is the primary thing. So before the exam, see, I told you the exam is easy to book. I'll just show you an example here. Let me open it. So you can have a website here called as aws.training. You can go to this website. You can sign in with your AWS account, or let's say you can sign website. And in this website, you can always book the exam. And the cost is $300 plus GST is there if you are booking from India. Okay. So you can book for this exam, and you can take the exam. In basically, you can write the exam maybe the next 1 week after your booking. Okay, no problem on that. And before you go through that, make sure that particular thing you're doing is you're going through the certification requirements also. Why? Because as I told you, the topics and the certification requirements can always change. So go through the AWS blogs and websites and see what all things are new. Okay, is it clear, team? So these are the primary thing which you don't miss when you go for the exam. The first thing is AWS is having a list of white papers. I'll just share if you want personally. So we have a list of white papers which is more specific to the certification. You must make sure you read this white papers. Like for example, AWS security white paper, AWS compliant white papers. You have to go through those white papers. And the next one is the best way to learn a particular service in Amazon is to go through the AWS documentation of it. So AWS provides documentation of each and every service they are offering. So you can go through the documentation, and always, I told you, always subscribe and always make sure you go to the, or you view the AWS security blogs and update to see the latest updates in the cloud platform. Clear, team? Is it clear? That's it. So you can ask your doubts now. We'll discuss. Any doubts you have? Anything? Any other queries you have, team? See, I'll just
Hi,
show you.
hi, Chris.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have a doubt. Is there some course kind of thing so that is something like an online instructor-led training for each of these domains? Do you have something like that?
Yeah, that is what I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just give you an idea about the course which I am doing. Okay. So what happens is, just give me a second. Yeah. See, basically currently I am providing the training for this AWS certified security specialty. Sorry. Okay, and as I told you, I know that for earning the certification or getting the skill of the certification, see, for preparing for the certification, just I'll tell you, 15 hours is more than fine. 15 hours of training is more than fine if you just want to focus on the exam. But I don't offer training for the exam only, so we have training only for that, or basically focusing on the skill set. So for this particular thing I told you, you need the foundation level knowledge of the AWS certified solutions architect. Okay, so this is mandatory. The skill set is mandatory if you want to do a certified security specialty. That is why I am offering a combo course where it contains both of the things. But in the combo course also, I am focusing on security specialty, but I will cover the topics from the almost some 70-80% of topics from the associate level certification also is covered. Why? Because you learn this thing, then it will be easy for you. I'll give an example. Let's say, for example, you study this topic called as IAM in the associate level. The same thing, you focus a bit more in the security specialty. So I have combined these two into a course, which is called as the AWS combo course, which will give you the benefit of both of it. It's almost some 50 hours of course, but out of the 50 hours, I told you, not only for the exam, it is for the skill set. I'm purely focusing on the lab in this. I told you, right? Because theory is not what you have to learn completely. Learn the labs and all. Prepare for the exam will be so easy for you when you learn the concepts and how to do it in the real time. Is it clear? Yes, Abdul, we are following a lot of use cases based on the topics actually. Is it clear, buddy?
Yes, clear.
Yeah, others, any doubts you have? You can ask your queries.
So one question about security stuff. So we discussed, right,
Okay.
there are new services or some of the stuff which is already Amazon or these guys are already publishing. So by default for enterprise services or enterprise account, do Amazon provide this, or it is like add-on service like CloudTrail or cloud stuff or various we have, right? So enterprise customer need to opt for each and every service, or Amazon provides by default?
So there is two words you have to understand. The first word is native services. Native services means, let's say for example, I'll give an example. For example, let's say first one, you have to understand what exactly is your company requirement. So currently, let's say I have requirement 1, requirement 2, requirement 3, requirement 4. So first of all, based on my requirements, I have to see if the cloud provider is able to provide those features. Okay, let's say for example, I want to have a monitoring in the cloud. Is it possible? Yes, they are providing CloudWatch. Is it possible to have a logging solution? Yes, they have. Is it possible to have an identity management solution? Likewise, first of all, you see what all solutions are provided by the cloud provider as for now. That is what you call as native services, which is there for the by default by the cloud provider. And you have to see what all things based on your requirements are not provided by the cloud provider. Let's say for example, I want to have a DLP solution. So basically in AWS, we don't have a DLP solution. So what we will do? We will use some third-party solutions. So based on that, likewise, you have to understand native solutions are provided by AWS, which will give you the actual or which will give you solutions for your infrastructure, and other solutions you have to implement on the cloud with the license or everything from the other provider or from the different vendor. Is it clear? And one more thing is there, as I told you, every time AWS is introducing new services, and each and every service which is introduced by AWS is actually addressing almost all the requirements now. Like for example, AWS has introduced a tool called as AWS Config for compliance factor, AWS Trusted Advisor for giving you the recommendations on the best security features, etc. Is it clear, team? And also you have this.
So it is, what I understood, it's like a pay on go, means whatever it is needed.
All the services are pay as you go only.
irrespective of your state is enterprise or even you are a normal customer.
Yes, but see, it is not mandatory that you have to use a particular service. You can use service if you want, otherwise not. You're paying only if you're using the service, right? Clear?
True.
Yeah.
No,
So
no,
before,
sorry.
yeah,
So my
go
question,
on, please.
so my question was, I understand because there are many security aspects, right? So if they are coming with new tools or whatsoever, definitely they will have a more insight rather than you are going with third party, because you have all dependency on third party. So I was just asking, so whether it is best to go or with the specific solution, or it is good to with third party solutions.
So the first thing I want to tell you is, whenever, in my perspective, it is always a best practice to use the native solution. I don't recommend using the third party solution. For example, let's say, for example, you are using an application called as Facebook in your mobile phone. When you search on the App Store or Play Store, you can see a lot of other applications are also there for accessing Facebook. But why do you using the default application? That means you don't want a third party to involve in between. The same way, it is always a best practice to use the native solutions provided by the cloud provider. But the thing here is, native solution is fine. But let's say I'll give you an example. We have a service called as AWS Inspector. So AWS Inspector is a vulnerability assessment service. Okay, vulnerability assessment service. So one customer told me that, okay, we need these requirements and the vulnerability assessment solution must have a particular feature. So when I gone through AWS Inspector, they can provide vulnerability assessment, but that is not meeting my requirement. So I have gone for Nessus there. Is it clear? The same way, first of all, you see if the native solution is able to meet your requirement. If it is able to meet your requirements, then it's a must go for that particular solution. Otherwise, you can use the third party solution. Is it clear, buddy?
Yes, super. Because what happens, like we generally face similar issues, like when you so the vendor will say, boss, it's not my responsibility, and then service provider will say it is best to use.
No.
Right?
Yeah, that word is very important what you said. Let's say if the vendor is saying this is not my responsibility, let's say you are saying it is your responsibility, definitely it won't give you a value. So after all, there must be a proper business continuity. That's why I told you, you must know what is your responsibility and you must know what is the provider's responsibility. You must have a very clear demarcation point. And I don't suggest using any kind of third-party solutions unless otherwise it is that much necessary. Clear?
Super. I understand.
Perfect. And Vipul, yeah, definitely we have a solution called as cloud formation, which is called as the infrastructure as service. But definitely that is more focusing development side. We will cover the basics in this associate level curriculum. Definitely, yes. And you asked me about, yeah, of course. See, I'll tell you one more thing. I'm planning to give you some projects also. So for that course, I'm planning to give you some projects also. So what happens is, you do that course, you understand all the topics, you understand how it works and all. So, but I want you to implement that as a complete structure. That is where I'll give projects in the course. Yes, I give. Anything else? Anything else, team? Anyone? Any other doubts? Others? Any other doubts, team?
One more question, which
Yeah,
is
please, happy.
which is like a silly question might be. So
no problem, please ask.
So once you complete this, so how many days preparation is needed? Because when you comes for right, availability and then all other stuff. So how much time once you complete?
For the exam you're talking?
Right, means how much days preparation or whatsoever needed?
So, so I'll tell you. Let's say you're without doing a course, or let's say you're doing self-learning. For self-learning, I suggest at least 1 month of preparation. But if your course also, I'll tell you, if you can spend 2 hours a day, 2 hours a day is more than enough. If you can spend 2 hours a day, 2 hours means complete 2 hours, right? It is not about the break and all. After all the breaks and all, if you can spend 2 hours a day, if you study for 2 weeks, you can pass the exam. But but I told you, it is exam passing is very easy. Read the documentation, read the white papers, go through the dumps and all. Definitely exam is very easy. But I told you, exam is just like your driving license. It's just a starting point. Learn. Yeah, after a course. If I say after your course, if after my course you are asking that, it needs 2 weeks only maximum 2 weeks. But if you're doing a self-learning, it's also like you can prepare for 1 month. Is it clear? So let's say, for example, I just want to tell you one thing. Those people who want to self-learn also, please make sure you go through these topics I told you in each domain. If you can go through these topics in each domain, definitely the questions will come, and AWS will not ask you any questions outside this domain or this particular scope of this course. Okay, don't worry about that. Anything else?
Krishna, can we get this PPT after the session?
Yeah, you want to, I'll do one thing. You can just ping me personally. I can share the list of topics and all as a file. Don't worry, buddy.
Okay.
Fine. Tony, it's about 50 hours. 50 hours. It's a weekend only now because I have other sessions as well. Anything else, team? Yes, Om, we can see. You can definitely go for both the certifications. And I'll tell you a strategy. This is one more tip I want to tell you. This is not always like that, but this can be worth. Why? Because let's say if you're planning for both the associate level and the specialty level. If you're planning for this plan, the first thing is you do the associate first. What is the cost? $150. So the cost is $150 for the associate level thing. And when you do the associate level certification, you will get a voucher for 50% discount. Okay? Is it clear? You'll get a voucher for 50% discount. So use this voucher and for the specialty. So again, the specialty also you can write in $150 if you want. So totally it will cost $300 only. Or you go for specialty exam, it will cost $300. Both are fine. Got it? Yeah, of course, people. Yes, definitely, it is my job. I'll share. And team, whether you're joining for the course or not, if you need any support on AWS Cloud platform or any cloud platforms, any recommendations or any suggestions, you can ping me. I can share my number in the chat box now. So I have shared my number in the chat box. You can search. You can ping me personally. No problem. Hope you got the number. This is my number. You can just, if you want, you can just ping me personally. I can just share the details as well. Okay. Got it? Got it, team? And team, I request.
Krishna, are you available on LinkedIn as well?
Yeah, of course, yes. You can just you do one thing, buddy. You do one thing. Just ping me personally. I can share you the LinkedIn ID. Okay.
No, I think I got it. Only Krishnan, right?
No.
Oh my God.
You are actually missing the wrong person. No, it's fine. It's fine. You can do one thing. You can just do one thing. If you want, I'll just share you my URL. Just wait. All of you, I'll just share. I don't want to mess up with them. Please wait. Requesting you all to keep your mics on mute. Yeah. This is my LinkedIn ID. Please, if you want, you can join. Okay. That's it.
Hey,
and
thanks,
team, one more thing. Yeah, before you leave, one more thing, please wait. Requesting all of you to share the feedback of this webinar. Please fill this and share the feedback. Got it? Thank you, team. Thank you so much. So bye all. If you have any doubts, you can always ping. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishna.
Bye.